Hello, this is Mark Smith with Family Tree Counseling Associates. The title of my video is Surviving a Relationship with a Sociopath. This video is basically a book review, and it isn't even written by me. It's written by a woman named Claudia Moscovici, and she is with Psychopathy Awareness. And she wrote on Amazon a book review of the book Love Fraud by the author Donna Anderson. And I thought it was just brilliantly written. And I just thought I would read the book review and then comment as I go along as somebody who has some recent and painful experience with tangling with a sociopath, and to come at that from a recovery perspective. So, Claudia Moscovici, sorry, I can't pronounce it very well. Donna Anderson, the author of Love Fraud, the book, and the website/support group, lovefraud.com, has recently published a new book called Red Flags of Love Fraud. You gotta like the title of that. If you're somebody who has been defrauded in love, so to speak, Red Flags of Love Fraud, 10 Signs That You're Dating a Sociopath. And Claudia says, I'd highly recommend for anyone who suspects or knows they are with a pathological individual. Psychopaths are extremely dangerous because they lack a heart. They lack a conscience. But they camouflage that fundamental lack so well. Let me try to read that again. Psychopaths or sociopaths, same thing, are extremely dangerous because they lack a heart and a conscience, and they camouflage that fundamental lack so well. My situation was just that. It was somebody who was hiding their real self for 6.5 years. And they were camouflaging. They were a chameleon. And they genuinely did lack a heart. And they genuinely did lack a conscience. However, where I come at this is, rather than being bitter, I'm grateful. Because the only power that a sociopath has in your life is just to tell you the truth about you. Tell you woundedness in your life that then you can repair and go on and have a healthy relationship. They do not have the power to destroy you. Claudia writes, they construct a mask of sanity by lying to others and hiding their real motives and their real identities. I never knew a woman that I was engaged to for 6.5 years. I never knew her identity or her motive. With their extraordinary glibness and charm, they come on strong to their potential victims. And I have a hard time with the word victim, but their potential marks, if you will. Love bombing them, flattering them, mirroring their interests and personalities, essentially seducing them, then using them for their selfish and malicious purposes. In my relationship, this woman basically figured out who I wanted her to be, and she became it so that I would take care of her financially. And I had no clue. And even for months afterwards, I couldn't own that. I couldn't see that because she was so excellent at showing what appeared to be genuine love and concern. So there are people out there who are that talented at lying and deceiving, and can even fool people who have expertise in affairs and affair treatment and sexual addiction. Since they can't genuinely bond emotionally with others, and they have no conscience, there's no limit to the devastation they can cause in people's lives. This woman I was involved with went to a treatment center, and she conned the treatment center. She went in there and played a victim role and just manipulated the entire treatment center, and they had no clue who she was. I had no clue who she was. She was very talented at deceiving people. Experts estimate, Claudia writes, that between 1 and 4% of the population is psychopathic. Since psychopaths are very sociable and promiscuous, this means that millions of psychopaths in this country alone adversely affect hundreds of millions of lives. Claudia writes, as its title suggests, Red Flags of Love Fraud teaches victims and the general public how to recognize the red flags of the psychopathic bond, which are far from obvious in the beginning. The book draws upon Donna's own personal experience. She was married for several years to a psychopathic con man and bigamist named James Montgomery. It's also based on testimonials and research from lovefraud.com readers conducted with her love fraud partner, Dr. Leanne Leadham, and last but not least, a lot of her own analyses of psychopathic behavior and insights about the mindsets of people who get involved with sociopaths. Most books about psychopathy focus primarily on explaining what this personality disorder is, the list of symptoms of the psychopath, and persuading readers why it's very important to get away from such pathological individuals and establish no contact. This information is essential to what I'd call the first phase of escaping the psychopathic bond, realizing you've been conned emotionally and or financially by a dangerous social predator, and understanding his or her pathology. And that's what's been difficult to say. I've been conned. I've allowed myself to be taken advantage of. I didn't know who I was dealing with. I was out of my depth. I was naive. It's hard to admit that to yourself. Claudia writes, but as a professional writer myself, I'd say the most distinctive feature of Red Flags of Love Fraud is the quality of writing. The title is written well. Red Flags of Love Fraud. That's a killer title. The quality of writing, both in content and in form. Donna's writing is well documented and informed, engaging, and psychologically insightful. Insight is when a writer manages to probe deep within, to explain analytically what may be only a vague intuition in the minds of the readers. Good writing encourages readers to explore their own psyches, their own motivations, and their own lives. Insight and introspection are especially important for people who get involved with sociopaths. I'm changing some of the wording. I'm not using the word victim. My apologies to Claudia. It's not enough to identify the traits of psychopaths and see how they behave and how they manage to manipulate and use us. People who get involved must also be able to look within in order to recognize some of the qualities and patterns of behavior that left them so vulnerable to psychopathic seduction in the first place, so that it won't happen again. So there's Claudia and Donna basically agreeing with me and saying, you got to look within yourself. You got to find out what made you sociopathic bait. You've got to figure that out, because you'll just find another one. You know, if there's 100 men at a party and one of them is a sociopath, and you're wired to be attracted to sociopath, you'll find him and you'll get involved with him. You don't want to do that. Oh my God. Claudia continues to write, to offer an important example. One of the most common ways that psychopaths initially lure victims, Don explains, is by a combination of, number one, love bombing and flattery. This is not from the author. This is my stuff. In Proverbs, the writer in Proverbs is warning the young married man away from the wayward woman. He didn't say, hey, look out for the hot chick. What he said was, watch out for flattering lips. Or flirting would be another way to say that, or love bombing and flattery. Number two, persistence. Number three, mirroring our identities and values. I got involved with this woman. She was a country gal, but she molded herself into a Carmel housewife for me. She quit wearing cowboy boots and jeans, and she started wearing dresses. And I was just so naive and so vulnerable. I fell for it. So love bombing is a process commonly used by cults, such as the Moonies, in an initial phase of attracting new members. It's highly effective for cults that are often run by psychopathic leaders, and it works just as well for individual psychopathic seducers. Donna not only explains each strategy used by a psychopath, but also insightfully analyzes the reason behind victim response. Love bombing is effective because unless you're very famous, rich, or some kind of celebrity, this kind of over-the-top attention is very rare. Few people are likely to tell you that you're the smartest, most attractive, most accomplished person in the world. First of all, because you're not. Secondly, because it's rare to encounter another human being who appreciates you so completely. During the luring or the idealization phase, therefore, psychopaths often set themselves apart from other people you've dated or befriended because of a wooing or romancing that borders on worship. My fiance used to say that she worshipped and adored me, and she called me my sexy man. And all the while she was actually involved with another man that she preferred over me, and it was a con job. It was not genuine. It was not real. And if you're in that situation, if you'll and you were traumatized by it, my videos and the book I'm working on, and the chapter by chapter step of working through this will give you direction as what do you do now after your heart has been ripped out and you're crying every day and you're not eating and you're not even sure you want to continue your life. How do you get better? How do you heal the wounds of somebody this vicious and this destructive? Claudia writes, they are also highly persistent, sometimes persevering for years until they catch and hook you emotionally. I felt very much hooked and caught and trapped by my own neediness, not by the power of another person, but because of my unresolved mommy issues. Only once you're emotionally invested in them, they gradually, or in some cases abruptly, drop the pretense of love and begin the devaluation and abuse. I grew up being verbally and physically abused by my mother, and once I was hooked and my needy little boy was attached to this woman, a whole nother person came out who was very mean and very abusive. Claudia writes, persistence pays off, and Donna elaborates, because people tend to associate it with love and commitment. If someone persists in proclaiming their love and pursuing you for month after month, or sometimes even year after year, we're likely to believe that it's because they truly are in love with us or truly care about us. Why else would somebody waste so much energy on a romantic pursuit? As far as psychopaths are concerned, the answer, unfortunately, is because they want power and they want control. It isn't just about conning you for your money. They're about power and they're about control. Claudia writes, psychopaths engage in a game like hunt or pursuit of the individual they momentarily desire, hyper-focusing on them like predators upon their prey. One of the quotes in another review of Donna Anderson's book is, sociopaths frequently engage in intense eye contact. In fact, it's called the predatory stare, a direct, unflinching gaze like that of a lion stalking its prey. If you get the feeling that someone is sizing you up for his or her next meal, in a metaphorical sense, you may be correct. So, sex addicts, it's all about the eyes. I've learned two sex addicts could be driving down the road, drive past each other, make eye contact, and then, turn around and find the other person. That's how the eyes are used in a predatory manner. Claudia writes, that's also why they commonly engage in cyber stalking and in stalking both before and after a relationship is over. In my vulnerability and naivety, I allowed my identity to be known on a dating website. And they went and read all of my articles online, and they had me cased out before the first date. And I was very vulnerable, very naive, and it's easy to cyber stalk somebody who has a lot of material online. It's easy to cyber stalk anybody. Sometimes the more you evade their grasp, the more interesting the hunt becomes for them. But they never pursue victims because they actually love or care for them. My fiance, sort of after she was caught, she confessed to some of her behavior, but it wasn't out of love or care for me. It was always some agenda that she had that wasn't pure and wasn't about love or accountability or anything remotely close to being in recovery. Their persistence is about their pleasure of the hunt, to possess, consume, and destroy their prey. And that unfortunately is true. Claudia writes, when you examine, as this book does, both the psychopath's behavior and the predispositions and vulnerabilities that led you into this dangerous game, you are likely not only to recognize the red flags of psychological relationships, but also the qualities that predisposed you to ignore them. Somebody who was wise and had been around the block a few times psychologically, and in dating and love would have spotted this bad actor from a mile away. But a needy middle-aged fellow with a needy little boy at his core who had a sociopathic mommy was easily manipulated and controlled. Claudia writes, knowledge is a process of acquiring accurate information and processing it with insight. Red Flags of Love Fraud offers both information and insight. It is essential reading for anyone who wants to learn how to identify the danger signs in others, as well as to confront the vulnerabilities within yourself. So, how do you survive a relationship with a sociopath? Number one, you own your own stuff. You own that you were made vulnerable to putting a sociopath in charge of loving you because of how you were wounded as a child. And if you don't know how that all fits together, then please do get in touch with a good therapist. If you can't find a good therapist locally, I'll work with you. And we'll look into your family of origin. And you know what we're going to find out? We're going to find out that you picked your mommy or your daddy or the combination of the two. If you grew up in a healthy home, you're not going to pick a psychopath. I'm telling you, you're not going to pick a sociopath. You're not going to pick a hardcore sex addict, affair-having, lie-telling person without a conscience. You know, if you grew up in a family where there were lies and affairs and sexual addiction and sociopathy going on, that's what you're going to grow up and pick, unfortunately. And it's that way so that you can heal yourself, so that you can move on with your life. I have a video that will teach you how you can survive the wounds of a sociopath. And if you look at this video on a computer, I don't think it shows up on cell phones, but there's a link that'll take you to a page about my video in my book called Healing Trauma Wounds, Healing Abandonment Trauma Wounds in the Eye of the Tiger. And I go through and talk about 40 different things that will help you to overcome and heal abandonment wounds and trauma. So check that out. It's 70 minutes long. It will help you. It'll change your life. Please get Donna Anderson's book, The Red Flags of Love Fraud, the 10 signs that you're dating a sociopath, or unfortunately that you maybe already married one. That sounds like an excellent book as well. So if you haven't joined our YouTube channel, please do that, Family Tree Counseling on YouTube. Visit our website, familytreecounseling.com, and I've got 6 books on there. One on abandonment issues, that's very relevant here. One on shame, that's also very relevant. And I thank you so much for watching today, and God bless.